Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of La Fabrique de l'Exportation, a French think tank on export, I would like to welcome you to this other webinar. This time it's going to be on country of origin image, very interesting topic. And we are pleased to have with us Mariana Suter, which is assistant professor at Leeds University. I'll leave Mariana the opportunity to further introduce herself later on. And so I would suggest you during the presentation to turn your microphone off, and should you have any questions or comments, you can you can ask them through the chat, and at the end of the presentation we will we'll have a discussion period, and then it will be the opportunity to share and have exchanges. So without any undue delay, I would invite Mariana. Mariana, the floor is yours.
The screen is mine. Thank you. Bonsoir, c'est un plaisir d'être ce soir avec vous. C'est seulement ça que je vais parler en français, mais c'est un plaisir pour partager le résultat de ma recherche et leur application pratique. Merci beaucoup pour m'inviter. Donc, I don't speak that well French, so I just introduced quite quickly. Yeah, I'm Mariana Suter. I'm based at the University of Leeds in the UK in the School of Design. And today I'm going to present to you a bit of my research in country of origin image and country image from the firm perspective. I must say that I'm Brazilian, so most of the examples, a big part of my examples will be using Brazilian brands. So forgive me if I don't have enough. I have some European brands as well, but we are going to use mostly the Brazilian case, okay? So when we think about this kind of products, a perfume, a mobile phone, chocolate, a bag, do we pay attention to the origin of these products, or do we pay attention to the influence of the origin of these products when we are thinking about buying it? Yeah, we do know that there are many studies on country of origin image looking at how consumers react or how they use the country image as one important and relevant cue in the buying process. And it depends mainly, it has the differences between different product categories. But my aim today is to explore with you how country image can be used as a brand resource. So I'm looking at the firm perspective, not in the consumer perspective. So today we are going to cover a bit about, we'll talk about a bit of brand concept, brand values. We'll talk about using the country image as a branding value. We'll talk as well about the different tools that can be used to transform the country image into a resource. And then we finish up with a wrap up, okay? So when we think about brands, there are brands all around us. We can brand products, we can brand services, football teams, we can see countries branding themselves, we can see charities and products and so on. We know that brands are recognized, that are instantly recognized, and some of them can even become verbs. Yeah, I'm going to Skype you, I'm going to Google this, I'm going to hoover the house. So I like to think that brand is an important marketing component of the firm. It's a sort of information for customers, and the brand itself is like the soul of the company. So it uses different symbols, name, colors, values, and also different sensory aspects to create this experience and to engage with the consumers. Therefore, how do we build brands? We need to think about how we build brands. if we look back the literature in the branding, scholars will suggest us to think about the positioning of the company or the positioning of the brand. So how do the company, the brand wants to be seen, perceived by its consumers? And then make a link with something that will distinguish that brand from among the others, between the others. So we have some brands that they work with heritage, other brands work with different values, assets, other brands focus on the personality of the brand, in building a personality of the brand. But then how do we use the country of origin image to build a brand? As I've mentioned in the beginning, there are different studies since 1960 when scholars started focusing more on the internationalization of firms. They did loads of studies, and country of origin images recognized as regarded in the literature as a variable that explains how the image of a country affects the sales of a product, a brand, a service. And this happens because consumers, they do discriminate between products that are identical, but in their functionality, but they come from different countries. In addition, consumers, they make links with national expertise in producing certain types of products when assessing the product quality and perceptions. So for instance, if we think about wine or if we think about salmon, we can think about some countries. And if I tell you the names of some countries, you will probably think about some products because there is this expertise from that country in producing some kind of products. So the country image information and the perceptions are used by consumers to increase their confidence about the product attributes. And we see several companies using cues, aspects from the country to build their brand. So we have some examples here, Café de Colombia. Then we have the Brazilian flip-flop, where they state made of Brazilian summer. We can also see here a British brand and another British brand that they emphasize a bit an English brand where they come from. And I like just to emphasize, this is a very interesting case from a Danish brand. I think everybody knows Carlsberg. And so Tom will help me with a video in a second.
They say that we Danes are the happiest nation in the world.
So, what's our secret? Could it be that we find joy in nature? Is it that we keep work and life in perfect balance? Is it that we make time for hygge, feeling all fuzzy and snuggly together?
Some believe the Danish way means searching for a better way.
Are we happy because we create beautiful things? Quite often. Maybe it's choosing simple style over fads and fashions. Or could the secret of our happiness be down to creating
What we believe is the best beer in the world.
Probably.
But basically, this is a campaign that Carlsberg launched in the UK in 2017. They invested a lot of, like, I think 15,000 million pounds to emphasize, to repositioning the brand exports in the UK, and they wanted to express the brand, emphasizing the links with its Danish roots. So they emphasize the hue and the sense of coziness. So I just wanted to show you this example because I think it's a nice one just to make that link with the country image. Okay. So, okay, Mariana, we understand that country of origin, country image can be used in the brand process, but then how do we do that? To get started, I'd like to have some help from you. We are sharing on the chat box a link, or if you have your mobile and if you can just take a picture, try to scan this QR code and tell me what is Frenchness. So write up to 5 different words that come to your mind when you think about France. Can you help me with that?
The link is in the chat.
Lovely. So I'll give you, let's say, 2 minutes for that. Is that okay? Great. I think we're good to go. Thank you very much for taking part in this exercise. So when we start thinking about how to use the country image in a brand, the first thing that that we need to do is understand the country image in depth. So I'm going to present you an exercise that I've said that I've done with the Brazilian case. So the first thing is thinking about what comes to your mind when you think about Brazil. So mainly when you think about Brazil, most people, they will present some things like this. They will talk about the stereotypes from the country. So basically in Brazil, they say the 5 S's: sun, sand, soccer, sex, and samba. But then we need to go beyond that, beyond the stereotypes. We can not emphasize the stereotypes when we're thinking about using the country image, because that it's given to anyone when wants to use the country image as a resource. So I suggest using, and then again, going back to the literature, to the theory, using a bit of the instruments that we can see in international marketing, international diplomacy. There are some instruments that you can use to measure or to identify the country image, the country brand image. These kind of instruments, they measure or they ask international consumers what their perception about the country in these different dimensions. So exports, governance, heritage and culture, people, tourism, immigration, and investment. For my research, so here are the links. I'll give you handouts at the end so you can have access to these links later on if you want to go further. I use the Simon-Anholt, the Nation Brand Index for that, because it's the first one that was coined. So Simon-Anholt, he developed this instrument to understand how the countries, they could also become brands, and what was the country's image abroad, not the country itself, not the product, but the country as a nation brand. And they look at these 6 dimensions. And I had access to the report from 2010, but at that time, in the different dimensions, we could understand the qualifying Brazil in these 6 areas. So very strong in agricultural products, food, handcraft, a country exciting in terms of tourism and fascination, educational in terms of tourism. It's people being cheerful, hard worker, and the culture with the carnival, different sports and music, a country with a very unpredictable governance and also corrupt, and then the immigration and investment as an ambitious country, modern, and as a developed country in modern as well. So this helps us to have some sort of framework to create a repertoire. So I try to use these elements and transform that into images to build sort of a mood board that can help, that can give the brands cues as how you can use this image into the brand. So for instance, let's do again the case of Brazil. So Brazil is a huge country, has 8,000 kilometers of coast. So you can imagine the entire coast, and just a comparison between Brazil and Europe here, you can see that it is a continental country. Because of that, there are vast different vegetation. So you have different kinds of forests and different, at least 6 different kinds of forests. So Caatinga, Amazon forest, Cerrado, Pantanal, the rainforest. Because of that, there are very different natural resources, different beauty sites, and different scenery that can help companies. When we look at the population, you look back at the history of the country, you see that the Brazil is a multiracial country with 3 different cultures. So we had the Indians before, and then the Portuguese arrived, and then they brought in the Africans. So it is a country that, from its roots, it has a miscegenation. So because of its plurality, it brings in a lot of different cultural events and in diverse aspects that you can see all around the country. In economy, we do have a lot of some multinational companies that are succeeding abroad. And then we think about politics, as I've mentioned before. You think about the corruption, and there's also the violence mainly generated because of the social inequality. So we also need to recognize what are the good aspects, but also the weak aspects. Brazil is recognized for its lifestyle, so the warmth and the cordiality of its people, the loyalty, and they are very welcoming, and they have the spirit of harmonized contracts and the joy of life. We also have different celebrities, and we need to look at them. They can inspire people around the world, sports and new sports, and also in celebrity. There are also different artists, prestigious artists in literature, in architecture, and also the music as well. So this gives a picture, or gives a repertoire to define what's Brazilianness, but in the case, we want someday to do the Frenchness if we're thinking about French companies. So based on these gathering of information, you can think about Brazil as a racial blending. There is a vast range of cultural manifestation, a lot of different natural, tropical climate, natural beauty, and the lifestyle, the joy of life, and then also the access to experience that bring joy to all, such as the carnival. So then my proposal for you later on is, if you want to do an exercise applying that to the Frenchness. So thinking about these different dimensions, how would you think about French in these different dimensions, how you can qualify these different dimensions? But we are not going to do this now. It's just that I'm giving you the steps and showing the case of Brazil. The next step is identifying aspects of the country image that can be applied to the industry. So if you think about the 6 dimensions, it doesn't mean that you need to use attributes from the 6 dimensions to apply to your industry, to your brand. You need to think about, among these dimensions, what has the connection with your industry. So for instance, I have here example for the Brazilian fashion industry, and I could identify what were the values, what were the aspects that had a match with, that could be used from the Brazilian image. So the lifestyle is very interesting to be used or to be applied in the fashion of Brazilian fashion designers. The use of representations of Brazil and national symbols, cultural manifestations there as well. We also, the handcraft, so our artisan applications and techniques that can be used, forms and volumes, so the different cuts, the different shades of the Brazilian fashion. Also the colors, the vibrant colors that are used, and the use of natural raw materials such as fibers, gems, and metals or different seeds. The fabrics originating in warm countries such as plain woven, cotton, or what we call the chita. And then the prints as well, the prints inspired in large colored flowers and tropical foliage could be an example. So this is one example applied to the fashion industry. So again, in the French case, what I would suggest is looking among these different dimensions, what would be interesting to connect between the industry where the firm is and the French image. And then we have the third and final step, which is the more the one that is really related to a marketing capability of the company. We need to think about how we can operationalize. Okay, now we know what's the French image. We know everything. We have a repertoire, and we do understand that these aspects, and we have three aspects that are really interesting to be internalized in the brand. But then how we really internalize that into the brand? How do we convey that to external stakeholders and internal stakeholders as well? So this was from my PhD thesis. We know that when a firm is internationalizing, there are several aspects that has to be observed, and we need to think about the marketing mix program. And the country of origin image is well worked. It can be used in the marketing mix to convey the country image. So when I was doing my PhD, I wanted to investigate how companies, what was the importance of the country image as a resource in their brand strategy. And it was interesting because I had a nice model, and I'm not going to explore that with you. But the thing is, there wasn't a measurement scale to measure the country image as a country specific advantage. So that's why I investigated a lot this, and I did 2 case studies, and that's what I'm going to go through with you more now. So I tried to identify how brands operating in international markets, they could use the country image in their brand. And the 2 case studies that I've done is with Natura Brazil. So I believe that some of you know Natura, and L'Occitane au Brésil. I believe that most of you don't know L'Occitane au Brésil. You know L'Occitane en Provence. But this made me really angry because I saw that there was this French brand in Brazil exploiting Brazilian image to sell more. And what happened is when L'Occitane came to Brazil, they identified a different target market, and they decided to create one brand to focus on that target market and to use the Brazilian image because of the philosophy of the brand owner of using the resources and the cultural aspects from the country. So that's why I'm saying that here, this is a case of a brand that is borrowing the country image of another country. So it's really interesting because L'Occitane did this in a very nice way. They extended the brand using the Brazilian image. And I'm going to go through the results of these 2 case studies, but I'll also bring in examples from other brands that I can show how to materialize this incorporation of the country image. So here we're going to start with L'Occitane again. The brand did a very interesting incorporation of cultural resources, Brazilian cultural resources. As I've mentioned, Brazil is quite big, so Carnival is a huge thing in Brazil. And within Brazil, you have different carnivals. And they went to explore and develop one brand, one product line focused on Olinda, the Carnival from Olinda, which is in the northeast of Brazil. And this is also very interesting. Tom, can you help me with this small video here to explain a bit more how they used local artists to embed the culture?
A xilogravura é 3 artes em uma só, né? É a arte de desenhar, a de talhar e, por final, a impressão, né? Que se tira da matriz original. Tem uns que dizem que é de origem chinesa, outros dizem que é de origem americana. Eu não sei decifrar de onde foi que ela veio. Eu só sei que eu aprendi vendo meu pai fazer. Nós exploramos muito o sertão, né? O agreste, as tradições, o cotidiano das pessoas, o amor, lendas. Eu recebi um telefonema, minha esposa disse, olha, você atenda, que é um pessoal de São Paulo. E ela veio com essa proposta desse projeto, que era essa xilogravura que eles queriam para ilustrar um perfume, né? Que queria o meu desenho lá. Eu disse, não, eu faço, agora tem que ter um tema, né? Quando ela disse Mandacaru, ele ali me encheu de alegria, sabe? Porque o Mandacaru, ele retrata a boniteza do sertão, como a tristeza também, né?
This example from Mandacaru, how they use the natural resource from Brazil as well, Mandacaru itself, and how they did ethnographic research and went to the northeast of Brazil and observed the culture, the xilography, how, you know, that was really embedded in that region and how it was important for the people from that region. And we also have examples from still in cultural resources. I do believe, I'm not going to spend too much time here on Havaianas. I do believe that most of the population in France, they know Havaianas, but it's a nice way to see how to incorporate the cultural resources into the brand, the enjoy of life motto that Havaianas knows really well how to do, the cultural tradition and diversity, and how they use the irony and joy in living in the brand. They try to incorporate that. And there are videos at the end. If you want later, you can watch that on your own time. This is also cultural resources again, but applied to the fashion industry. So different kind of hand and artisan works, different kind of laces and embroidery from different regions. So this is also related to the heritage of the different regions. And when it comes to natural resources, you can imagine a country with that extension, how many natural resources you can find that. So the companies, they can use natural resources either as an input to the product, or just for the outside, just for the packaging. But they use the typical raw materials from the country, use the flora and fauna, images in prints, shapes with foliage. So it is interesting that L'Occitane au Brésil, they created, I think, 6 line of products based on biomas from Brazil. So they use for Pantanal, they use the focus on aguapé. In Amazon, they focus on water lily. Caatinga, they focus on Mandacaru as a natural resource. In Cerrado, they use the genipapo. In Atlantic Forest, they focus on bromelia, the flower. And this is just one example of the layout of the store, where you can see that they have divided and they try to explain the story of each of the product lines that they are offering. And here the bromelia as well, so you can see where that natural resource come from within the map of the country. I found it very interesting as well that they hired artists and architects from Brazil to develop all the visual communication of the packaging of their products. Another dimension that can be used as a tool to convey the country image is visual and textual elements. So here are examples from other companies. So you can think about the country's name, colors of the flag, the country's flag itself, saying some phrases from the country. So made of Brazilian summer can be related to the countries as well. And then think about the landscape, how you can use the landscape as well to emphasize that. One very important thing that I like to mention here is that country image is given to anyone. So it's a resource that can be used by any firm. And that's where you really need to work with a good marketing capability. So you either need to have an inside nice marketing capability where you can convey well how you're going to use that, or you need to be careful with the design that you're using. See, because here you can have a parrot, but then it can become really, let's say, caricature or goofy, the way that you're using the country image. So that's why it's important to work as well with a marketing capability. So we can see here again, landscapes, either in the product or in the packaging, making connections with the country, and animals as well. But then again, design is very important, so it doesn't become something ugly rather than something that can be valued. I found this very interesting. It's the inside of the store in Brazil, and they try to reproduce a Brazilian marketplace, an old marketplace. So the story behind all the details used by the brand is very interesting. Here we can see other visual elements of a Dutch brand. So I do believe in a service company. So QOM uses as well the Dutch image. When we are flying, I do believe that you can see that. So the signals in different places. And this is, no, it's not a Brazilian company. It's a French fashion brand, which is called Ipanema, but they also rely on Brazilian image to develop their brand. But it's very interesting how they are really making usage of the Brazilian image and borrowing it in with a nice way, in a nice way. We have the senses as well that can be worked. So thinking about the music, the touch, and also the smell, how you can use that. So you can think about the smell from the product itself. You can also think about music related to the country in different touch points, but also about the touch when in the packaging. So you can see how it can be embossed in the form of the packaging as well. And finally, the last but not least, but very, very important one is the employees. So employees, well-trained employees, knowing what is important about the country of origin image and how that is really a brand resource. They can also convey that. They are telling the story. And this is also very relevant in the business-to-business case, because in B2B, we are dealing with firms that are buying, and the main contact point is the employer with the other company. So in sum, these are the 5 different tools that can be used to incorporate and to convey the country image into the brand. So textual and visual elements, natural resources, senses, cultural resources, and employees. And then all these has to be done with a good marketing capability, making sure that the way that the country image elements are incorporated into the brand, they are elegant and they are aligned with the brand value as well. So these are the different tools. And then how about incorporating Frenchness as a firm resource? So what I want to do now is go back to the exercise that you helped me doing here so we can have some ideas together. So 1 second that I'm going to share the results. So we had 21 taking part, and what you said, what is Frenchness? So you said that it's about elegance. So it's interesting because the big words here are those words that have been mentioned by more than one person. So it means that elegance is something big, romantic, Paris, food, luxury, wine, tourism, gastronomy, culture, beauty. These are some of the things that more than one person has mentioned. And it is very interesting because we can see, sorry, we can see here that are things that are really part of the French culture, but at the same time, we need to identify what are the stereotypes, what are the things that are different from this, there are other resources that can be used in the French image that didn't appear there. And I'm sorry, I don't know that because I haven't studied Frenchness, but I'm quite aware that there are other things. I'm sure that there are other things. And we already see that there are some brands using the Frenchness in different areas. So these are some examples that we can see. L'Oréal, L'Oréal, La French Lab, La French Fab, and Bon Maman. But there are many other brands that already use that, and many other companies that can also use. So when thinking about incorporating the country image into the brand, my suggestion is based on what we've covered together today. And the example that I've explored with you about Brazil, there are 3 different stages. So the first stage is understanding the country image from an insider perspective, not just thinking about what others think, but then go inside from a national perspective and identify positive and negative aspects, do a research on that. And avoid stereotypes. Stereotypes sometimes can be good because some stereotypes are positive, but not all the times. So L'Occitane au Brésil, they overcame a lot of Brazilian stereotypes. So for instance, I've mentioned before, like the association with football, the soccer, they've tried to go more to the cultural aspect. They try to show the cultural and different artists and bring that. So there are different ways to explore the country image. The second step is looking at the industry and thinking about whether this country image, what is the connection between the country image and the industry where I'm working? What are the attributes? What are the values? What can be aligned? And finally, thinking about how to operationalize it. Think about the relevance of a marketing capability, the design, and thinking about the different tools that can be used to internalize the country image. Okay, so to finalize, we saw the importance of building brands. We also saw the relevance of thinking about the values that guide the brand building process. We observed the process of turning the country image into a brand process since the beginning to the end. We also saw different tools that can be used. We saw that there are the different companies from different countries can also borrow the country image from another country. For firms in the internationalization process, mainly firms that are just exporting or starting exporting, the country of origin image can be a reasonable, cheap resource for firms. But again, it demands a careful implementation process requiring the marketing capability to turn that into a resource and not a disadvantage. It is important for the marketeer to know well both strengths and weakness of the country image, and also choose appropriate facets of the country image depending on the industry. Okay, so here there's more to follow up if you'd like to, and some videos and links that you can watch later. And now I'm open for questions.